Hello, hello. I am playing around with the music. I don't know if you could hear that, but on this particular platform, you could choose a different music, different background music. So that is the chill hop. And this one is the R&B one. Kind of cool. I like it. And this one, where is it? This one is the lounge background music. I really like this streaming platform. It's cool. It offers different options, right? Music. Anyways, you didn't come here to listen to some background music, did you? Otherwise, we'd have to put some chill hop on. This is chill hop. Hasn't started yet. That's chill hop. Anyways, you didn't come here to listen to some music. It's Friday. You came here to maybe to chat about purpose, right? Because that's what we're talking about today. I want to welcome you. Welcome to Fridays Live. My name is Linda G. Robert. I am your Back in the Groove Again coach. And I'm really glad that you're here, whether you're watching me live or if you're watching me on replay. Hello, bonjour, j'espère que tout va bien. C'est vendredi. Yay, c'est vendredi. It's Friday today. Now, if you've been following along, you know that, every month I have a different theme. And of course, now we're in the month of June. So we're going to be focusing on a different theme, one that can be important for some people. It's the theme of living a life on purpose. So that's what we're talking about for the next, few weeks in June. And I want to be honest with you, a lot of us sometimes aren't living on purpose. We get caught up with our many lists of things to do. We get caught up in our routine. We get caught up in our obligations that we sometimes forget to ask, what do I really want? Right? Who am I really? And what do I really want? Why am I here? Why am I here on this planet, right? And of course, that's what we're going to be exploring today. Now, if you're watching live, let me know where you're tuning in from. And tell me, have you ever felt like you've been on autopilot? You get up in the morning, maybe you make your coffee, you go to work, and then you do your work, and everything seems to be like automatically. You're doing it because that's what you've been doing for, I don't know how many years, for example, right? You're on autopilot, and there's no judgment because we've all been there. Like I have been there too. I remember when I used to work years ago, when I used to work in an office, I can see myself doing the same thing every day, getting up at the same time every day, going to the washroom, brushing my teeth, washing my face, doing the same thing. And every day I'm going, oh my goodness, is this it? Right? Is this it? And of course, if you're doing something you love, then you might be on purpose and it's not a problem because it doesn't even feel like you're working. You're just in your joy. But if you're not doing something you love, then it is almost like having to, pull yourself to get to work today. So that's what we're talking about today. Today's live is called Discover Your Purpose, aligning your life's path, because sometimes we just need a little reminder. We really do. A little check-in, right? Even a little nudge or a little tap on the back to say, hey, let's get back on track here. Let's get back on track. And of course, a fun thing that I'll be doing today, I haven't done that for a while, but I also brought my cards. So I've got a couple of decks. One is the life purpose card. So we'll pull a card from this later. And I also love this deck too, the I love you card. So we'll pull one of these out later as well. They're fun. I like pulling cards once in a while because especially when I'm kind of questioning what I'm doing, or I have a decision to ponder. And sometimes I get a lot of clarity when I pull a card. So yes, I do enjoy pulling cards once in a while, right? It's a little bit of fun for me. And why not make it part of our, in today's session, why not make it part of our session today as well? So that'll be a little later on. So what does it actually mean to live on purpose? Well, it's not about figuring your whole life out, because to be honest with you, that's very difficult to do. Now, some people, when they're in high school, and they may be a little younger, when they're in high school, they know that after high school, they'll go to university, and they know what program they'll be taking, and they know that after university, they'll find a job and they're going to become a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, or whatever they're going to do. Some people know that ahead of time for whatever reason. There are different reasons why people know that or sense that. In my case, I've changed careers a few times, and I knew what I wanted to do in high school, but it didn't work out that way. I remember when I was in high school, I was really interested in archaeology, and I actually thought I wanted to go to university and study archaeology, but that's not where I went at all. In fact, after my grade 13, I went to college, and it wasn't until I became, I was going to say became a parent, because I was a parent when I went back to university. It wasn't until I was in my 30s that I did go back to university. So it's really not about figuring your entire life. It's not about knowing exactly where you'll be in 5 years from now. And let's face it, at my age, or maybe at any age, really, we don't really know where we're going to be in 5 years from now. But it's really about being intentional in the moment. And it's about making choices that feel aligned, that feel that they fit who you are and what you value, right? And listen, purpose doesn't have to be big, doesn't have to be world changing. It doesn't have to be about changing the entire world here. Some people do have that type of mission, and when they do, that is part of their mission, their purpose. But everybody is different, right? Everybody is different. For some people, maybe it's just to make people smile. And when you make people smile, it brings you joy. And that's how you know, I'm on purpose. Because it just feels easy for you and easy peasy, joyful for you. Maybe for some people, it's as simple as wanting to raise kind humans, kind young people, right? They just want to raise some children that are going to be kind to the world, and so that means that they have to behave in that way. And when they do see their children being kind to others, it brings them joy because they're on purpose. That's what they were here to do, or at least now to do, because I think our purpose changes in life. It could be about creating art. And when you are creating art, like when I do my stained glass, when I'm doing my stained glass, I am there. I'm in that moment. I'm in that flow. When I'm in front of my computer with my students, I'm in my flow. When I'm developing programs, I'm in my flow. I know that that's what I'm meant to do, because otherwise I would feel like I have to do this, and I don't feel like that when I'm doing what I enjoy doing. And for other people, it could be just being a volunteer and bringing a little bit more light and happiness to your community. And when you do that, when you're involved in your community, it just brings you a lot of joy. So you know that when you're doing that, you're on purpose, right? You're on purpose. So these are good feelings. So we're going to do a quick check-in. So how do you know when you're not living on purpose? How would you know if you're not living on purpose? And I'm just going to pause here for a second. How would you know if you're not living on purpose? How could you tell? What would your mind tell you? What would your body feel like if you weren't living on purpose? I know that I have a viewer right now, so hello, hello. But I want to know, how would you know? And you can just write it in the chat box, and I'll show it on the screen when you've responded. So I'm going to give you a couple of ways that you would definitely know if you're not on purpose. For example, maybe you feel bored. You feel like you're just stuck. You're not able to move forward. And life just feels boring for you. Maybe you dread getting up in the morning. Oh my God, here we go again. We have to get up and go to work again. Maybe that's what it feels like. Maybe it feels like you're chasing goals that you don't even care about. Or maybe you cared about it at some point, yes, but then you got into that routine of continuing to chase after the same goals, that repetitive mode. And now it's more of a dread than anything else. Because right now, or maybe for the last few months, or longer than that in some cases, it's not something that you really care about anymore, but yet you're still doing it. And maybe you're doing things because you should do it, right? You just should be doing this. And I'll give you an example. Like last year, I invested some money into something that I thought I would be interested in. I'm still paying for it right now for another year and a half, but that's a whole different story. And I really thought I wanted to do this thing. But within a month or so, I discovered it wasn't for me. No, there are certain things that I knew fairly quickly. No, this is not what I want to do. I did it for a while because I should do it. After all, I did invest in it, right? But I can tell. I could tell that it wasn't for me. I'd rather do a lot of other things than to focus on that. And still to this day, even though I'm still, invested in it financially. So I am reminded of it every now and then that I should be working on this thing, but I don't feel like it. And I don't spend a lot of energy. In fact, sometimes I don't even spend any energy on it at all because it drains me more than activates me. It seems to contract me as opposed to expanding me. And that could be another way when you know that you're on purpose. You'll feel expanded when you're on purpose. And when you're doing something that you're dreading, and maybe in your brain it's because you've done it so many times that you're not telling yourself that it's dreading that for you, but your body is going to feel like it doesn't have a lot of energy. It's going to feel drained, and maybe by the end of the day you will feel drained instead of being energized. So that's another way that you can tell. Does that sound familiar at all to you? Does any of what I've just mentioned sound familiar to you? And I'm just going to pause here for a second, see if you want to add your 2 cents here to our conversation. Yes, we're live. This is live. How can I prove to you that I'm live? Well, if you add a comment to the chat box, I'll be able to show it, and that'll prove to you that I'm live. I'm live. This is not a recording. Now, if you are watching back, if you're watching the replay and you add a comment, I won't be able to respond right away, but I will respond. So if you are watching the replay and you're thinking, yeah, you've been off purpose for a while, or you are on purpose, well, write down how you can tell that you're on purpose. Okay, so I am going to get my cards ready because it's about that time. This is always fun for me, so I'm going to start with this one here. And I'm not a medium. I'm not a psychic. I think I'm getting pretty good with my intuition, though. So when I'm going to be pulling out my cards, I'm going to try to really pull a card that speaks to you. Okay, that's kind of like the intention that I'm going to do as I'm focusing on these cards here. And if it does speak to you, I would love it if you would write a comment in the comment section. I think when we work for a company, ideally, we work in a company that values us and that we value them, and that makes me feel at least like that I'm contributing, that I'm on purpose. So I'm just going to pull a card. All right. This is the card. Writing is the card. You heal, inspire, teach, and entertain with the words you write. Now, let me read what it says here in the book. Writing. All right, ready? And if it speaks to you, I want to hear that. Write it in the comments section. Okay, you drew this card as validation of your dream to be a writer. And I do dream to be a writer, but not full time. Okay, whether your medium is books, articles, or screenplays, the angels encourage you to explore writing as a career path. This will involve some self-discipline on your part, as you will need to spend time engaged in this activity on a daily basis. And that's the truth. The angels remind you that writing is an art and not a science. Therefore, it can never be completely perfect. Your ego may whisper fears and insecurities inside your mind, designed to make you procrastinate about a writing project. If this occurs, call upon the angels, particularly the messenger angel, Archangel Gabriel, for confidence, clarity, and motivation. The angels will also help you find publishing outlets for your writing projects, if you ask for their help and then follow their intuitive replies. All right. So that was the card we pulled. Does that card speak to you at all? Does it have any, does it? And, writing isn't just for publishing. You can publish what you want, right? I finished a book finally. I finished it probably at the end of last year. It's called Loving Me, A Practical Guide to Loving You More. And, when I started writing that particular book, it was mostly because, some of you may know I've been married 3 times, and most of those relationships were relationships that I didn't feel loved, and I didn't feel I wasn't very committed to those relationships. And so when I wrote this book, I did go back and think about my history and think about why I was who I was at the time. when I got married. And what I needed to do over the years to start choosing better. I needed to start choosing me better. In fact, I needed to start loving myself more and start taking care of myself more. I needed to set boundaries. Anyway, so when I wrote that book, it was not only helpful to those that read it, it was also really helpful to me as well. And in that book, by the way, there are some journal prompts. So it's really beneficial. You know, if you enjoy journaling, journaling is a writing method, right? You could journal your thoughts, you can journal your frustrations, you can journal gratitudes. We've talked about that on other lives as well. So writing, you know, some people just like writing for themselves, and sometimes they'll write for other people. But you know, it is a skill, and it's something that when I write, I'm in the flow. I'm not thinking of anything else. In a sense, it can be very meditative. Think about that. When you're writing, you are focused on that paper, that medium, wherever you're writing, you're just focused on that. Generally, we don't think of anything else. We might want to just dump what we're thinking on paper. And that suggests that we are on purpose at that particular moment in time. All right. So when we are on purpose, it's simple, but it's really, 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 really powerful when we feel that we are at the right place, right time. Everything is just being perfectly aligned. So how do you start aligning your path so that it starts feeling more like you are on purpose? So here's a few ideas for you, and then we'll pull from the other deck, Life Loves You deck. So you want to check in with yourself. You want to check in with your values. What matters to you most? Are you living in a way that honors those things? And you know, when I wasn't honoring my values, there was always a little voice inside of me telling me that. I didn't pay attention to it at the time. I didn't really understand what that little voice was. And sometimes I didn't hear it at all. But when I started paying attention and following, what that little voice was telling me, I started feeling more myself. I started feeling more authentic, that I was living an authentic life, that I was on purpose. You also want to look for things that light you up. So what are those things? What are those things that energize you? Even if it's a silly, even if it's a silly willy little thing, what are those things that bring you that that energy? I'll give you an example. I was talking to a student today from Brazil, and I was telling him, because we were talking about Fridays. I was telling him what I used to do on Fridays when I worked at the community service center. And what I used to do was at 4:20, I would put some music on. I would set up the intercom system, put the music on, and we could hear it in the entire building. And sometimes I had the wrong intercom on and they could hear it in the other building on the other side of the street. And I do remember my boss coming out one day saying, "Oh my God, thank God there's no clients here." And of course, I made sure there were no clients in the building before I put the speakers on and the music. But I was telling him that I would do this every Friday. And when I came out of my office dancing, because you guys probably know that I love dancing. When I came out of my office dancing and then encouraging everyone, all my colleagues to dance with me, I was definitely on purpose. I actually think that I was destined to be a singer and performer. And sometimes I do that. Sometimes I pretend that I'm on a stage and I just perform and I feel like I'm like I'm living my life on purpose. That brings me a lot of joy. So you want to ask yourself, what type of things energize you, right? What type of things bring you energy? And noticing too when you're around things or doing things that drain your energy, right? So you want to start clearing out those things that do drain you, and you want to bring in more things that, like I was mentioning before, that seem to, you know, expand you. You might find your purpose in a pottery class or a ceramics class or in a dancing class, or when you're having a conversation with a stranger. Maybe this is like, wow, that was really interesting. That was like super interesting. So notice how you feel inside your body. Notice how you're so in tuned with what's happening when you're doing that thing. Because your purpose isn't hiding from you. It's really waiting for you to get quiet enough for you to pay attention, for you to start noticing how it feels like when you're feeling that natural energy. Now, I want you to remember you don't need to overhaul your whole life overnight. Of course not. You want to start making daily little shifts, a little bit more attention, a little bit more alignment that shows that you're starting to live your life on purpose. And of course, this applies for jobs that you're applying for as well. Yes, right? When you are applying for jobs, and I'm mentioning this because I'm on LinkedIn as well here, not just on YouTube. When you're applying for work and you're reading the job description and you're visualizing yourself in that position, do you feel, oh, I just can't wait to be doing that? Oh, that's so me. That's so me. Woo! And you're feeling expanded. You're feeling joy even before you apply. Or do you feel, oh, I don't know if I can do that, but I'm going to apply anyways because I need a job? I get that. I really get that. I have done jobs that were more survival jobs that I needed to do. And some career coaches will tell you, well, if you can hang on a little longer, and this is the truth, if you can hang on a little longer, you might want to set yourself a deadline. If you are looking for, set yourself a deadline. I'm going to keep looking for those ideal jobs for me for X number of months. And if you have to take on a part-time job or a job, make it that it's temporary, right? It's a survival job. And you continue to look for other jobs that light you up. All right. So I'd love you to write down what you're noticing this week. Right? Today is Friday. Take note of what you're noticing this week. If you are living on purpose, if you're not, if you're going, okay, that was obviously not something that was aligned with who I am. Write it down in the comment section because I would love to be able to validate what you're saying and respond to what some of you are saying. What some of you are saying. Another thing I want to mention: if you missed last Friday's video with Dr. Mohiba Jamusi, you could find it on my YouTube channel. And yes, I was live on LinkedIn. I don't know why it didn't go live on YouTube. I have no idea why it didn't. So I had to download it and upload it back on YouTube. So it's there now. It was, to be honest, you could tell that when I meet with all of my guests, actually, I feel on purpose. I really do. I really enjoy podcasting. It's something that I never thought I would enjoy because it's not, I didn't train for this. But I do really feel like I'm aligned when I am. So, and it's the same thing if you go on that podcast, you'll be able to see that Dr. Mahuba, not Mahuba, yeah, her name is Mohiba Jamusi. You can tell she's on purpose. You can tell she's in the right place. Yeah. So, anyways, you'll be able to find it. It was really a fun conversation. We talked about joy and how we bring joy to our daily lives. All right. Now, another thing that I want you to be aware of, I'll be announcing this in my newsletter. So if you don't have my newsletter, it's a perfect opportunity to go up to my website and to sign up for my mailing list because I do send out a newsletter every week. And of course, this week's theme, just like for the rest of the month, is on life purpose. So I also add some tips and strategies on there as well. But I'll also be announcing to my mailing list on Saturday, that's the plan anyways, that I'm going to be offering some of my best programs because I've been working a lot on developing programs. And one that I'm really excited about, actually, I'm excited about all of the ones that I do develop, but one that I'm specifically excited about is called Mindful Moments, where I'm combining mindfulness meditation and laughter yoga. And it's kind of cool. So I'm going to be offering that to the subscribers on my mailing list for $5. Yeah, so that they can evaluate it and give me some feedback. So if you want to get on my mailing list, please do go to my website, lindagrobert.com, and put your name down for my mailing list, and you'll be, invited to participate in that as well. All right, I think that's all I want to share today. Let me just look at my notes. Yeah, it is. So I'll be back next week, next Friday, same time, same place. We're still talking about purpose, but of course, it's going to be a little bit different because there's a lot of things to talk about, right, when it comes to living a life on purpose. All right, so on that, I'll say have a great Friday. And I am looking forward to reading your comments. If you're looking at the replay, please do also add where you're watching from, which country you might be watching me from. And if you have any questions, please do add them as well. All right, this is Linda G. Robert. Let's get you back in there.